From here, if I want to add my class, I go into my students and I go to this Manage Students section. Here I can individually add students. So if I want to add a student, I just click this button. And here, for example, let's create a student and we'll just call them Test 1 for the sake of that. The login name is the actual name that they'll use to log in with. So when they try and sign in, this is the name that they would use. The ID and email, this is just an ID number. So if students have a unique ID number often assigned to them, you can use it. Otherwise, you could pretty much use any number you want. If you don't want to use an ID or an email, feel free to just duplicate their login name. The big thing here is that if you are using this across multiple teachers, this ID number becomes important because it's how other teachers can add the student. If you're an individual teacher and there's probably no other teachers in your school, or you're not using a school-based subscription, this isn't important to you. But this is more so if I try and add a student to my class as a new user that's already using EdQuest with another teacher, it'll come up to say a student with that ID number in your school is already there. Do you want to add them? The password, we are setting the password initially, so students can, or we can change this for them, but in this setup, we set the original password. So depending on how you want to do that, you could use a random generator, you might just use something really simple that you only share with them, or you might just start with a basic password and then later have that chat with your students and go, what's your login for your school password? I'll change it to that so it's the same, and that makes it much easier for them. Once you've done all that, you've added all their details in, you just click OK, and that student is now added to your class. You can also download an Excel spreadsheet sample, and you can just copy in all of your students from a list to that, and then just upload the file from that system, and you can bulk upload an entire class rather than doing this process manually. If you want to remove a student from your group, and this is basically, I'll talk about this in a later video, this is basically your class. So if you want to remove a student from your class, you can do so. So it'll tell you here, it's going to remove them from your student group. Other characters that the student owns will not be affected. So it'll delete their avatar and quest data for your class. But if this student is also in another class of yours, then it has no impact. If you want to delete them entirely, so you no longer teach this student, you can just delete this entire account. And this is what you would do if you want to add more students because you don't want to exceed your license numbers. So we would delete the student entirely, and this will delete all of their data, basically all of their progress, all the settings, etc. within that group. That deletes them for good. Once you've done that, you can go back to your students and teams, and this is kind of the page that you spend the most amount of time sitting on during lessons, because this is where kind of your behavior management comes from. And this I'll talk about in a later video. So now that we've talked about how you add students, let's talk about how we can organize them. If we go into the Manage Teams section, here I already have a couple of teams that I've made it. Anything that's not in a team will just be in the unassigned section, and I can add and remove teams if I want. So here I could delete the teams, I could edit them, and say change their name, or I might add a new team and I'll call this the group of 4, let's just say. So now that I've got my teams, anyone that is unassigned, or even if they're assigned to something, I can just click and drag and it'll move them into that team. So if I want to move little Johnny into the elites, I just drag it, and same thing for anyone that's unassigned, Jane can now be the first member of the group of 4. So it's just a click and drag system to view the teams. On my main page, again, this is broken into team view. I can hide these if I want to, if I only want to view a specific team, and I can go from there. So this is organizing my students, my teams, and in the later video, I'll talk about how we use these behavior management tools as well.